In my humble opinion, social media is good for exactly one thing: animal videos. Sweet ones about dogs reuniting with long-absent humans, those always make me cry. Adorable ones about unexpected friendships between a child and a crow, or an elephant and a tiger. Silly ones about cats versus cucumbers, or cats versus tinfoil. These are all Googleable, and I encourage you to do so. Or how about a raccoon that goes up to a drive-through window? Or Emmanuel the emu causing mayhem on a farm. A girl trying to rescue a squirrel from a kiddie pool. Guilty dogs avoiding eye contact with their humans. And elephants cleverly stealing sugarcane from cargo trucks. That's what my kids told me about yesterday. And I watched it and it was amazing. We humans seem to have an insatiable appetite for animal content. Doris Day, the singer and animal rights activist, writes, quote, "Compassion, loyalty, devotion, forgiveness, tenderness, empathy, affection, acceptance, selflessness, love. These are qualities that our human friends have in abundance, and oh, how I wish I could say the same about humans." End quote. Amen. In her book, Random Acts of Kindness by Animals, Stephanie Leyland concludes that animals, through their loyalty, bravery, commitment, and love, quote, have stated that we are all sentient and conscious beings, each holding within us that little spark of the divine, end quote. On this Earth Day, I thought it would be fun to share some of the amazing tales in her book about these non-human animals, so that we may perhaps learn how to be better human animals. All right, first up, a dog named King. On Christmas Eve, 16-year-old Pearl Carlson woke up suddenly at 3 a.m. to find her German Shepherd King in her room, pulling frantically at her bedding. And this was surprising because King was typically locked in another part of the house overnight. She suddenly realized that her room was filling with smoke and that the house was on fire. And she quickly raced to get the rest of the family and King out of the house before the fire engulfed them all. They all managed to escape, mostly unscathed. King had some burns on his paws and a little gash on his back, but seemed otherwise fine. But the day after the fire, King would not eat his dog food, and they thought that was strange. So they decided to examine him a little closely. The Carlsons looked in King's mouth, and they saw that his gums were pierced with painful, sharp wooden splinters. That terrible night, King had, with sheer desperate force, chewed and clawed his way through the closed plywood door that separated him from his family. Remember how she said she didn't know how he got in her room? That's how. And a different door had been left open for him so he could go outdoors. He easily could have saved himself, but instead he chose not to flee, but to gnash and gnaw and smash his way through the door, to face the blinding fire and choking smoke, to rescue his human friends. Next up, another unexpected rescue. Michael Miller, a man, was snorkeling off of the Big Island in Hawaii when he was suddenly caught in a riptide and pulled about a mile out to sea. And even the strongest swimmers would have a hard time coming back in a whole mile. He swam hard, but realized he wasn't going to make it back into land by himself. He got too tired. Rather than panic, Michael closed his eyes and he began to meditate. And in spite of his desperate situation, he had this feeling of love and tranquility came over him. And then, when he opened his eyes, he found himself surrounded by a group of sea turtles. The largest turtle swam directly under him and paused so that he could easily cup his hand under the edge of its shell. This group of turtles swam Michael all the way back to shore. And as they swam, he again felt flooded by that sense of tranquility and love and feeling of interconnectedness with all other beings. And when they were close to the beach, He simply let go of the turtle, and they turned and swam back out to sea. And now, a different kind of tale about what it means to be a parent. One day, a naturalist gave a chicken hen 21 guinea fowl eggs, just to see what she would do. The small eggs were very, very different from chicken eggs, but she sat on them anyway, and the naturalist just assumed that she was too dumb to notice the difference. Well, eventually those eggs hatched, and little guinea fowls came out, not chickens. But the mother was unperturbed. And then she did something that shocked the naturalist. She did not lead the little chicks to the feed that chickens need. Rather, this good adoptive mother led them to some bushes and scratched ants' nests for the pupae. Now, chickens don't eat such things, and they don't scratch for them, but guinea fowl most certainly do. Another naturalist gave a hen a similar experiment, some duck eggs to nurture. And after they hatched, she did what no chicken in the world would ever do with her own chickens, or her own chicks. She led them to water and cajoled them to swim. Now, how those hens knew what to do with those different birds, I don't think we'll ever know, but I would say probably not so dumb. Our final random act of kindness is a story about how care comes in many forms. There was a hot, sunny day, and a woman rescued a starving, neglected calf and brought it back to her horse corral and tried to rehydrate it. As the little creature lay limply in her arms, she noticed that her horses were behaving strangely. They were clumping together and sort of watching over this struggling animal. And as the day went on and the sun moved, so too did this cluster of horses. She realized that the horses were deliberately creating shade to protect this little dehydrated calf from the hot sun. They were also providing care in the only way that they could. The stories I've shared here are just a small sample. I also read about hippos saving impalas, cats picking up litter, birds protecting their injured friends, a horse saving a falling trapeze artist, a goose protecting a child from a rabid dog. There are so many stories of animals sacrificing their own health and safety, of animals demonstrating generosity and resilience, of animals showing us a path to a more sustainable, more loving, and more just future. As writer Terena Idia writes, maybe with time and intention, instead of invoking humane and humanity as the pinnacle of existence, we can turn to the many creatures and elements we share this little blue marble with to help us become better humans, better terrestrials. The lessons and teachers are literally all around us. Look, listen, learn. As Phoebe Judge, who is the host of one of my very favorite podcasts called Criminal, she says, there are also lots of stories of animals, quote, really going for it, end quote. A pet pig named Carlton scarfing down neighborhood jack-o'-lanterns. A beaver breaking into a dollar store just to peruse the aisles like any other shopper. A fox that stole hundreds of pairs of Crocs, just Crocs. And a possum quietly hiding in a Christmas tree. I'd like to share one last story from the New York Times in a dispatch from Paris, January 22nd, 1908. In the outskirts of Paris, a good story is now going the rounds concerning a splendid Newfoundland. The dog is the property of a man who lives on the banks of the River Seine, just outside Paris. Now, some time ago, a child playing on the riverbank fell into the water and was in imminent danger of being drowned. The dog, hearing the cries and the splashing, leaped over a hedge, ran down the bank, and plunged into the stream just in time to rescue the little victim. Now, naturally, the brave animal was made much of, and the father of the child presented him with a succulent beefsteak. 2 days later, another child fell into the water and was rescued by the very same dog. The lifesaver received the same caresses and another beefsteak. Now, up to this point, there was nothing extraordinary. But rescues became more frequent. It began to be suspected that the neighborhood was haunted by some mysterious criminal, and a special watch was inaugurated. And then the truth came out. It was the dog, the noble lifesaver himself, that was the guilty one. Whenever he saw a child playing on the edge of the stream, he promptly knocked it into the water and then promptly jumped into the rescue. He had thus established for himself, quote, a profitable source of revenue, end quote. The headline read, Dog, a fake hero. And that is the end of our Stories for All Ages.